I am 95 years old, and I have something to tell you that my doctors never said to me. Not one of them. Not in 40 years of checkups and appointments and sitting in those cold little rooms in the paper gown, waiting for someone to tell me the truth. They managed my symptoms. They adjusted my medications. They ran their tests and reviewed their numbers and sent me home with instructions. But not one of them ever sat down and said, "Here is what is actually happening inside your body as you age. Here is what you can do about it that nobody is going to prescribe you. Here is what I wish I could tell every woman who walks through that door." I had to find most of this out myself, and by the time I found it, I had already lost years to things that were completely preventable if someone had only told me sooner. So I am telling you now, because you deserve to know while you still have time to use it. I want to start with the thing that surprised me most. The thing that nobody in any waiting room, any magazine, any conversation with a well-meaning friend ever connected clearly enough for me to actually act on it. Loneliness is not an emotional problem. It is a physical one. I do not mean that in a poetic way. I mean it biologically and literally. Chronic loneliness raises the levels of stress hormones in your body the same way a physical threat does. It drives inflammation. It weakens the immune system. It accelerates the exact cellular aging processes that we spend enormous amounts of money and energy trying to slow down with supplements and skincare and elaborate routines. I found this out at 81 when a doctor, not my regular doctor, a researcher I heard speak at a community health event, said something that stopped me completely. She said that for women over 60, the quality and frequency of genuine human connection is one of the strongest predictors of how they age. Stronger than diet, stronger than exercise, stronger than almost anything else we typically measure. I sat with that for a long time because I thought about my own life and how many years I had spent being busy without being connected, present in a room without being truly seen by anyone in it. I had family. I had neighbors. I was not isolated in any obvious way, but genuine connection, the kind where someone really knows you and you really know them, and the conversation goes somewhere honest and warm and real. That had become rarer than I had admitted to myself. And my body, I now believe, knew it long before my mind did. I want to tell you about a woman named Sylvia. Sylvia lived 3 streets over from me, and we had been acquaintances for years. The kind where you wave from driveways and exchange pleasantries and never quite cross into anything deeper. Sylvia was 78 when her husband passed, and within 18 months of his death, the change in her was visible in a way that frightened me. She moved slower. She looked smaller somehow. She caught every cold, every flu, every passing illness, as if her body had stopped bothering to defend itself. Her daughter told me once that the doctors could not find anything specifically wrong. Everything was within normal range. But Sylvia was disappearing, and everyone could see it. What Sylvia had lost was not her husband only. She had lost her primary source of daily human connection. The person who knew her history and said her name with familiarity, and was simply there in the ordinary texture of every day. And without that, something in her body stopped fighting the way it had before. I started visiting Sylvia on Tuesday afternoons, just to sit, just to talk. Nothing organized or purposeful, just two women in a kitchen with tea and time. And I watched her come back slowly over the months that followed. Not all the way back, but back enough. Her color returned. Her posture changed. She started making plans again, small ones, but plans. I am not saying I healed her. I am saying her body responded to connection the way it responds to medicine. Because that is what it is. That is what the research says, and what my own 95 years of watching human beings confirms beyond any doubt. Now, if you are finding what I am saying valuable, and I think you are because you are still here, I want to ask you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon. Because what I am sharing with you today is just one conversation. There are many more coming. Things I have learned. Things I wish I had known. Things that took me decades to understand that I want to hand to you directly. If you leave now without subscribing, you are going to miss them. And these are not things you want to miss. So please, do it now, and then come back and keep listening. The second thing nobody told me clearly enough was about muscle. I spent most of my life believing that losing strength as you aged was simply inevitable. Something that happened to you, like gray hair, like wrinkles, just a feature of the territory you were moving through. I did not understand until my late 70s that muscle loss in aging women is not passive. It is not just something that happens. It is something that happens when you do not actively work against it. And the consequences of letting it happen unchallenged are far more serious than anyone had ever impressed upon me. Muscle is not just about strength or appearance. It is metabolically active tissue that regulates blood sugar, supports bone density, protects your joints, and keeps your balance in ways that directly determine whether you stay independent or become dependent. I did not know that. I thought exercise for older women meant gentle walks and maybe some light stretching. Nobody told me that resistance, actual resistance work, lifting things, pushing against weight, was among the most powerful anti-aging interventions available to me at any age, including 90. I started doing simple resistance exercises at 83. I want you to understand that 83, not 20, not 40, not even 60, 83. And I still gained measurable strength. My balance improved. My doctor noticed the difference in my muscle tone within a year. Your body responds to the right stimulus at any age. It never stops being willing to adapt. But you have to give it something to adapt to. The gentle walks are lovely. I still take them. But they are not enough. And nobody was honest enough with me about that for most of my life. I also want to talk about sleep. Because I think women especially are told that poor sleep is something to manage rather than something to solve. We are handed the tools to cope with disrupted nights, rather than being helped to understand why the disruption is happening and what it is costing us. What poor sleep costs an aging woman is not just tiredness the next day. It is the nightly repair and restoration that your brain and body depend on to function. During deep sleep, your brain literally clears metabolic waste through a system that only operates fully when you are in a specific stage of rest. When that process is chronically disrupted, the buildup of that waste over years is now being connected in research to cognitive decline that we have historically just accepted as an inevitable part of aging. I accepted it too. For years, I accepted fragmented sleep as normal for a woman my age. I did not know I had the ability to meaningfully change it. I did not know that late eating, evening screen time, bedroom temperature, and the timing of light exposure throughout the day were all variables I could actually adjust. Simple things, unglamorous, ordinary, completely accessible things that made a real difference when I finally started taking them seriously in my 80s. What time did you go to sleep last night? What was the last thing you looked at before you closed your eyes? How dark and how quiet was your room? I am asking because these questions matter more than most of us were ever taught to believe. And you do not have to be 95 and looking back at lost years to start asking them. You can ask them today. I want to pause here and ask you something. Does any of this feel familiar to you? The tiredness you have been accepting as normal, the connection that has quietly become thinner than it used to be. The sense that your body is doing things you were never quite prepared for. I think a lot of you watching this know exactly what I am talking about. And I think you have thoughts about it. Things you have noticed, things you have experienced, things you have wondered about and never quite said out loud. I want to hear them. Write it in the comments below. Tell me what you have been accepting as normal that maybe should not be. I read what people share, and it helps me understand what to talk about next. Your experience matters here. This is not a one-way conversation if you do not want it to be. The third thing I wish someone had told me was about purpose. And I know that sounds less medical than the other things I have mentioned, but the science behind it is just as real. Women who maintain a strong sense of purpose, who feel that their presence contributes to something outside of themselves, show measurably better health outcomes across almost every category studied. Lower rates of cognitive decline, better cardiovascular health, stronger immune response, longer life. Not because purpose is magic, but because a human being with something meaningful to move toward is a human being who moves, who engages, who stays connected, who keeps caring about their own health because their health is in service of something they are not ready to stop doing. I have watched women lose their purpose and age a decade in 2 years. I have watched women find new purpose in their 70s and 80s and reverse that trajectory in ways that startled everyone around them, including their doctors. Purpose is not a luxury for younger people. It is a biological necessity at every age, and for women especially, who are so often taught that their purpose is located entirely in taking care of others. The moment those others no longer need caring for in the same way can feel like the ground disappearing beneath you. I have been there. I know that feeling. And I want you to know that finding a new answer to the question of what am I here for is not self-indulgent. It is one of the most important health decisions you can make. Sylvia eventually found hers in the most unexpected place. She started writing down her memories. Not for publication, not for anyone in particular, just writing them down because she realized they would otherwise disappear when she did. Her grandchildren started reading what she wrote and asking questions, and she started writing answers to the questions. And before long, she had a reason to get up every morning that was entirely her own. She lived 8 more years after her husband died. Good years, present years, years where she was not disappearing, but arriving, slowly and imperfectly, into a version of herself she had not met yet. I am 95 years old, and I am still arriving, still finding things out, still occasionally furious that nobody handed me this information 40 years ago when I could have used it differently. But also still here, still thinking clearly, still having conversations that matter, and genuinely believing that the best thing I can do with whatever time I have left is to sit down like this and pass on what it took me a lifetime to learn. There are things your doctor will not tell you, not because they do not care, but because the system they work inside was not built to hand you this kind of knowledge. It was built to treat what is already broken. You deserve more than that. You deserve to understand your own body well enough to protect it before it breaks. You deserve to know that connection is medicine, and muscle matters, and sleep is not negotiable, and purpose is not optional, and that every single one of those things is within your reach, regardless of how old you are right now. Before I finish, I want to say one more thing directly to you. I know some of you watching this are caring for an aging parent or a spouse who is struggling, and you are running yourself into the ground doing it. And nobody is telling you that you matter in this equation too. You do. Your sleep matters. Your connection matters. Your body is not just a vehicle for getting other people where they need to go. Take that in, please. Put it somewhere you can find it again on the hard days. And if you are not already subscribed to this channel, please do it now and watch our other videos too. I say this not to fill a number, but because what we talk about here, these honest conversations about aging and what nobody told us, and what we are still figuring out, they are worth coming back for. There is more to say, and I intend to keep saying it, and I do not want you to miss what comes next. So hit that subscribe button and the bell so you hear about it when it arrives. I found out too late about too many things. You do not have to. That is all I wanted to say today. Take care of yourself the way you would take care of someone you love. You have earned that. All of us have.